All right, now, we are going to go on to the demonstration portion of working with clay. Now, for this particular project, again, you have your wet clay that you were given to. I would not take all of it out at once. I always like to work with just kind of a handful at a time. And of course, it depends on what you're making. But for me, I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different things. So I would just start with a handful of clay and just kind of get used to squeezing it and knowing what it feels like. Now, when we work, there's the most important thing is just kind of getting your work area set up. Again, I'm working outside on a table and I have set up a paper towel. You could use a napkin or you could use a paper plate, something where the clay is not going to stick to. The clay will stick to glass, the clay will stick to wood. It needs to have kind of that, either that softness or kind of that, I don't know, so, where it's just not going to stick. So use a paper towel or like a paper plate. For me, I'm using the paper towel because it's just easier to get. Now from here, what you're going to do is start building whatever it is that you're going to be making. So for me, I am going to demonstrate a couple different things. So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how you would build up, say, a coil vessel. So I'm going to start by just making a bunch of coils. And when you make coils, which you all have done either with Play-Doh or some sort of material like clay, when you make coils, the trick to that is to make sure that they are the same. They're even throughout. You don't want to have a fat end of a coil and then a skinny one. Try to make sure that they're uniform. I always like to make the majority of the coil in my hand, holding it up like this, but you can bring it down to the table as well and then just kind of even it out. And a good thickness for a coil is the thickness of a pencil. So you could maybe have a pencil around to kind of compare. I have a Sharpie because you never want a piece of clay that you add to your sculpture or use for your sculpture thicker than a Sharpie. If it's thicker than a Sharpie, it has the opportunity to possibly not make it in the kiln. So for me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you two things. You could start a coil vessel by literally just taking a coil and wrapping it into like a snail, like that, and then kind of gently pressing it. And then I'm going to make one more coil here. Again, I'm rolling it in my hand first, and then I'm going to bring it down to the table and make it a little bit bigger. And then here again, if we refer back to that first video where the slip and score, you can't just take this piece and add it. You have to score it. And that's what your little popsicle stick's for. And then you have to slip it in a little water dish, add a little bit of water, and then I can add this next piece. And then I'm going to stop there because that is going to be my base. And then I can kind of soften it up and change the shape a little bit if I so choose. Make it more of an oval if I like. And then what I would work on from here is just building up the sides. So again, going back to making a coil and then just building up the sides. It's my base, set that off to the side, and then I'm just gonna roll a long coil here. And coiling's fun because you can do all sorts of things. It's very flexible, easy to do. Now, when I am building up the sides, so now what I'm doing essentially is I'm gonna build up and go up tall because I want like a short little cup or a short little vase. Again, I can't just put this on top and start wrapping. I'm going to score it or cut it on the top all the way around the edge, scored it, water, And then I'm going to wrap it around and start building it up. Score. Anytime you're attaching a new piece of clay, it needs to be scored. Like that. So now you can see as I'm kind of molding it, my vessel is starting to build up. And I would just keep going, and then you can pinch it if you wanted a different shape. So that's one idea that I have for you. I set aside a little bowl because when you're done with these, you don't want to just set them anywhere. You want to put them either in like a small box or on a small paper plate or bowl so you can move it around without having to actually pick it up and touch it. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is, that was mainly coil, is if you want to do something, okay, so let's say I built up this, but I want to maybe decorate it. You could do, like, let's say you make your whole entire clay vessel out of coils, but then you want to add something to like your initial to the outside of your vessel. You can do that. You could either make your initial by coiling, or right now what I'm doing is I'm just flattening. This is the slab. So I'm just flattening it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out, you see here, I'm taking a toothpick. Now, if you don't have a toothpick, be creative with other tools that you could use around the house. Maybe you have a butter knife that you could use. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to carve out from a slab, I'm going to carve out a letter A here. And then I'm just going to kind of touch it up with a little bit of water and smoothing out. There. And then when I get this all done and I get my vessel done, I could actually attach this. I could attach this to the side of my bowl. And then I have a decoration. So slab is another technique that you can use for cutting decorations out, or like the other idea that I had for some of you, if you don't want to make a vessel or a bowl or anything out of like I just showed you, you could make your favorite food, or you could make a food. So let's just say you really, 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 really love tacos. Well, you could make a slab, and then I'm just going to kind of neaten it up a little bit so it's not so organic on the outsides. Okay, and then if this is going to get turned into, say, a taco, I could fold it and pinch it, and then I could fill it with all of my fillings. So maybe I'm going to have pinch and make a bunch of ground beef. There's my ground beef over here. Just a bunch of little pinched pieces. Here's my taco, what's going to be my taco shell. And then again, you could have your lettuce, leafy lettuce. And then again, remember, you can't just sandwich it all in. You would have to score the clay. So if this is gonna be my little taco, I have to score the clay, add some water, and then I could put the ground beef in, the cheese, the lettuce, sure it gets stuck there. And then when it's all done, I would close it off, and then I would have my little food sculpture. So that's another thing that you could do for this particular project. You could do something like that. The ideas, you can look up online other ideas, but I really want this clay creation to be yours. I've showed you coil, I showed you slab. Now the last one I'm going to show you is pinch. Pinch, again, pinching you do just when you're going like this, pinching and getting the coil or the clay to kind of flatten out. We pinch all the time as far as techniques with clay. The other one with pinching would be just like a pinch pot. So you start with a ball of clay, you poke a hole in, and then from there you pinch and open up your bowl, and then you would just keep pinching. And we did these, if you were at the public school, we did these a lot when we were younger. When we made animals and stuff, we always used the pinch method. So coiling, you could do coil vessel, slab for decorations, or if you're going to do something maybe food related. And then of course you've got your pinch method. Remember, you can use your popsicle stick, you can find toothpick. Nothing should be thicker than a Sharpie, just because we don't want things to break or explode in the kiln. And then you should have a little dish of water. That is your slip, your glue. And then I like to have a container or a little miniature box or paper plate where I can set my project when I am done with it. While you're working, if you find that your clay starts to crack or crumble, take your fingertips and just add a little bit of water to it as you're going, and that will kind of re-wet your clay. If you have any questions, email me. But again, this is just for your sculpture, and have fun with it, because I know how much all of you love clay. Take care.